The shocking truth: how America finally silenced the world's most feared terrorist at midnight. They say when the clock strikes 12, secrets are revealed, but what happened that night was more chilling than any horror movie. Across the dimly lit streets of Washington, D.C., shadows danced under the flickering streetlights, hiding the whispers of a legend. A notorious terror lord, shrouded in mystery and fear, had eluded countless manhunts, his haunting laughter echoing through the alleys of history. But these weren't just tales told in hushed tones, they were calls from the front lines of a global war that no one felt safe from. On that fateful night, the air was thick with tension. Homeowners could feel a shiver creeping up their spines, a wind, or perhaps it was a warning. They peered through their curtains, praying it was just their imagination playing tricks. But then, the silence shattered. Men in black stormed a seemingly abandoned building, where rumors suggested the terrorist had taken refuge. The sound of boots on the pavement was like the war drums of an approaching storm. From the shadows emerged flashes of bright lights and the distant roar of helicopters, gathering swiftly like gathering clouds before a tempest. It was like a scene straight from an action film, the tension palpable, the stakes high. The neighbors watched, their hearts throbbing in sync with the thumping chopper blades above. Anxious murmurs filled the night air. Just what was happening? Who were these men braving the unknown? But what would follow was beyond comprehension. As they breached the doors, the tension reached a fever pitch. Cameras flashed, bringing life to the horror unfolding, a betrayal of everything people thought they knew. The smoke, thick and choking, seeped from the building as screams, not of fear but fiery defiance, filled the night. Did they finally have him? Or was this yet another wild goose chase that ended in despair? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just when they thought the nightmare was over, a figure emerged from the shadows, his face masked, his eyes filled with righteous fury. Everything erupted in chaos. Shots fired, screams echoed, and fear clenched at everyone's throats. Whispers danced through the crowd like wildfire. Could it really be him? The one they all feared, the one they believed was untouchable. But in one fleeting moment, all fell silent. A hushed gasp swept through the onlookers as the masked man raised his hands, and right then, hope flickered. Perhaps tonight wouldn't end in despair. Maybe, just maybe, history could be rewritten. But as the silence lingered, one question pulsed in the minds of every witness: what price would they pay for this moment of clarity? As the figure lingered there, the mask concealing his identity almost seemed to blend with the swirling smoke. It wasn't just his presence that sent chills down spines, it was the power he commanded in that moment. The stillness of the crowd was electric, charged with an intensity that seemed to hold the very air in place. Was this the end of an era of terror? Or just the beginning of something far darker? Suddenly, bullets rang out again. Tension snapped like a taut wire, and chaos consumed the scene. People screamed, some dove for cover while others instinctively moved closer, hoping for a glimpse of the man who had haunted their fears. The masked figure staggered backwards, a flash of pain crossing his features before he regained his footing. Heartbeats raced amidst the crowd, their breaths shallow as they collectively avoided the reality unfolding before their eyes. From the shadows of the building, another gunman burst forth, firing into the chaotic crowd. Panic surged like a wave as chaos erupted anew. A woman crumpled to the ground, a baby's cry pierced the air, striking chords of grief and horror. People scrambled, their primal instincts dictating their movements. In that frantic moment, the very fabric of normalcy shredded. The masked man fought back, defiance igniting in his movements. "You think you can silence me?" he spat, his voice booming like thunder amid the storm. The chaos only amplified the tension, each crack of the gunfire deafening, echoing with the weight of fear in every heart, while the heroic forces pressed on, desperate to capture him. Something else was unfolding. Footage streamed live across social media, viewers transfixed by the relentless scene. Comments flooded the screen, some cheering for the men in black, others horrified by the violence before their eyes. Is this justice? What are we willing to sacrifice for peace? New questions surged, igniting a firestorm of debate across the nation. In a quick, calculated move, the masked man reached behind his back. There was a fleeting second where hope danced once more, but that glimmer faded as he revealed a small device. Was he going to blow them all sky high? The air grew heavier, charged with dread as if it had condensed into something tangible. "Stop!" echoed a voice, shifting through the storm of chaos. An FBI agent stepped forward, hands raised, brow glistening with sweat. "We can negotiate." But the masked man, with fury still visible in his eyes, only smirked. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. It felt as if the world held its breath, a collective gasp erupting from the crowd. Would the man who once orchestrated fear now become the gauge that measured their strength? The agent spoke again, voice steady yet full of trembling intensity. "What do you want?" In that pivotal moment, every eye was upon him, filled with confusion and hope, yet underscored by an ever-growing fear of the unknown. What was the masked man really after? What did he plan to reveal in the wake of this onslaught? Just then, the air shimmered with uncertainty, a tension tightening like a vice. The masked man let a chilling laugh escape his lips. "You want the truth? It's time for you to see." And with that, his next words would alter everything they thought they knew. In a heartbeat, their world shifted again. What truth lay ahead, and how would it tear at the seams of everything they believed? The crowd was frozen, hanging on the masked man's every word. A murmur rippled through the throng, mingling with the chaotic backdrop of heavy breathing and pounding hearts. What truth could he possibly hold? The air around them thickened like fog, each breath tinged with the warning of potential devastation. With his gloved hands gripping the device tight, he took a slow, deliberate step forward. The lights flickering overhead cast eerie shadows that danced across his mask, distorting his features, amplifying the sense of dread. The camera phone zoomed in closer, capturing the moment as if it were a scene from a film, but this was real, and the stakes had never been higher. "Listen carefully," he drawled, voice low, almost hypnotic, as if pulling the very strings of fear. "For years, you've been fed stories, lies designed to keep you in your place. But I'm the one with the truth, the shattered pieces you've been too blind to see." The buoyant terror electrified the crowd. A woman nearby covered her mouth in shock, her grip tightening around the hand of an elderly man beside her. Fear fluctuated within their expressions, and some fainted, unable to handle the pressure. "What do you mean?" the FBI agent challenged, trying to remain authoritative despite the trembling in his voice. But the masked figure simply shook his head, eyes glinting with a twisted sense of satisfaction. A sudden burst of gunfire echoed, more shots rang out, bullets whizzing past the agent, narrowly missing bystanders. The chaos reignited with even fiercer intensity. People pushed, scrambled, and tumbled, desperate to escape the potential carnage. Panicked shouts filled the air alongside the ordered yells of law enforcement trying to restore control. As the dust settled from the surge of bullets, the masked man resumed, raising the device into the air. "What would you do for reality? What would you risk to know the truth?" His voice penetrated the chaos, each word drenching the crowd in urgency. In that moment, something shifted. Hope flickered. The crowd quieted, and all eyes turned back to him. One person in the back yelled, "Tell us then. Tell us what you know." The plea was almost a chant, rising from desperation, hunger for clarity. "Ah," he chuckled, reveling in the moment. "You must first ask yourselves, how deep does your loyalty run? Until what point will you defend the lies?" The masked figure's voice coiled ominously around them, a dark web cast over the truth he hinted at, but before he could continue, sirens wailed in the distance. The oncoming law enforcement, federal agents, and media began flooding the narrow streets, drawing nearer with lights flashing in a kaleidoscope of urgency and chaos. Something snapped in the crowd. Fear collided with a primal instinct to survive. As officers began to shout orders, confusion reigned. The tension was unbearable, the air tinged with the scent of sweat and anxiety. "Release the truth!" Someone shouted defiantly, challenging the violence while the masked figure merely eyed the crowd with cold amusement. With urgency thrumming through the area, he turned slowly, the smirk lingering on his lips. "They cannot save you," he taunted softly, a promise hanging in the air. As ecstatic shouts of loyal supporters and cries from fearful critics intertwined, panic devolved into mayhem. The masked man erupted into a fit of laughter, and with unyielding ceremoniousness declared, "It's time for you all to choose your side then." He pressed the device firmly against his chest, and a blinding light erupted, momentarily illuminating the scene before cloaking it in darkness. Was it an explosion? Was this the revelation he promised? The darkness felt alive, swirling around them, igniting fears anew. As sirens blared and confusion reigned, a question loomed larger than any before: what awaited him in that splitting dark? With the crowd trembling in fear and shock, one thought reverberated through their minds: had they just crossed from the edge of terror into the depths of pandemonium? As the last vestiges of light faded, they all felt it. The suffocating grip of uncertainty, and in that moment, realization dawned: the real battle was just beginning. The darkness swallowed everything. Faces twisted in fear, hands frantically searched for a grasp, a firm hold amidst the chaos. Was this the moment they'd all been waiting for, or the start of something far more sinister? Whispers caught in throats echoed against the cold walls of the alley, a haunting reminder of how quickly everything could unravel. Then, unexpectedly, a sharp sound cut through the veil, the low thud of something heavy hitting the ground, a rippling shockwave that prompted even more screams. Dust particles danced in the thin beams of light that fought against the dark. Shadowy forms began to emerge, but nothing felt solid, each shape threatening yet distorted, like an artist rendering a nightmare. With exactly the sort of dramatic flair he intended, the masked man reappeared in a sudden flash of eerie light, illuminating the chaos for a second. "You've chosen the abyss," he bellowed, his voice a haunting echo that traveled through the murmurs of the crowd. Fear morphed into a strange blend of curiosity and defiance. What did that mean? "Make your choice." His laughter was wild, almost jubilant, as he waved the device in the air. "Will you seek the truth I unveil, or will you cling blindly to the lies?" The crowd held its breath, faces showing a mix of shock and contemplation. In the distance, sirens continued wailing, but underneath, a fresh dread slithered in. The question of what truth lay within that device was now louder than the chaos around them. A fragment of light illuminated a teenage boy at the front, who met the masked man's eyes with an intensity that cut through the crowd. "I want to know," he shouted, voice shaky yet determined. "What happens if we don't?" The masked man paused, his head tilting as if considering the question, before responding with a gravity that hung heavy in the air. "Ignorance is death. Choose incorrectly, and you might just unravel everything you thought you knew." Those words sliced through the air, and as they did, the crowd rippled with unease. People exchanged nervous glances, their convictions tested. What were they willing to sacrifice for the truth? And at what cost? Then, a brilliant flash erupted again, this time from the device itself. It pulsed like a heartbeat in the masked man's hands, emitting waves of energy that sent vibrations through the ground. A collective gasp arose from the throng as they felt the very earth tremble beneath them. "Look!" someone screamed, pointing. A flicker of images danced along the walls surrounding them, disjointed pieces of footage revealing alarming secrets hidden in plain sight. Corruption, lies, deals made in shadows. It felt like the very soul of the city was being bared for all to see. Voices around became frantic, people began to argue amongst themselves. "This can't be real," someone shouted. "Do we trust this madman?" The masked figure stood menacingly, relishing the chaos unfurling in front of him. "The truth always slips through your fingers like sand." But only I can hold it long enough for you to grasp. His challenge echoed, ringing clear as a bell, resonating deeply within the hearts of those ensnared by doubt. And then, amidst the din, he dropped his voice to almost a whisper, enough to stir the souls in the crowd. What sacrifice will you make? Those you love? Your safety? Your very humanity? His words weighed heavily as each pulse of light threw fleeting images across the mob. Was it manipulation? Or was it genuine? It was impossible to tell, and the stakes felt impossibly high. But the moment stretched, like a tense elastic band ready to snap. Just then, the glint of police badges caught the eye of many, the culmination of flashing lights just beyond the barriers. Officers poured onto the scene, faces set with hardened determination. Step away from the device. An authoritative voice shouted from the fray. Panic surged through the crowd once again, a mix of defiance and desire clawing for attention. The masked man glanced over his shoulder, a smirk twisting at the corners of his mouth. You think they'll save you? You're already too deep. When darkness reigned and choices loomed, clarity among the chaos remained a distant illusion. Would they turn toward the truth within those flickering images, or flee into the grasp of those who promised security? And as the night dawned on them, one thing became clear: the fight for awareness, identity, and freedom was far from over. What truth awaited them now, as the masked figure prepared to unleash chaos, both within and outside the crowd? The sirens blared louder, cutting through the shouts and gasps, the air thick with tension and uncertainty. The cops were serious, and they weren't going to back down. Just like that, the masked man was caught in a perfect storm, prey to their commanding presence and the panicking crowd behind him. Back away. The officer shouted again, this time inching closer, the blinding lights framing his figure like a guardian of law and order. The masked man raised his hands theatrically, device still gripped tightly between his fingers. You think this is about fear? He taunted, his voice smooth, almost silky against the clamor. No, officer. This is about awakening. The crowd trembled, swaying like leaves in a storm. Half of them seemed drawn to the masked figure, hungry for the truths just flashed on that wall of darkness. The other half looked toward the police, eyes filled with a flicker of hope, a promise of safety amongst this hell. Do you see? He shouted, gesturing wildly to the images projected around them. They hide the truth just as much as I do. Don't let them take this chance from you. No. A woman cried out in despair, clutching her child, who clung to her leg with wide, fearful eyes. Just shut it down. We can't trust you. No. The teenage boy who had first spoken was primed to be heard. What if it's real? What if everything we've been fed is a lie? Before the chaos could escalate further, the masked man took a step back, surveying the frantic crowd, the obscured guilt on some faces mixed with the urgency of others. This is not just about what I reveal but what you actively choose to ignore. He pointed, directing collective fingers at both police and citizens. Only by facing the monster can we truly kill it. And just like that, the realization hit those in proximity like a slap. It wasn't merely theater, it was a call to arms. But which side would they choose to stand on? The oppressive law clamoring for order, or the chaotic truth promising liberation at a hefty price? The pulse of the device quickened, resonating like a heart ready to burst. Images shifted again, darker truths that unveiled darker deeds. Executives shaking hands with politicians, children suffering in silence, streets stained with the blackened taste of betrayal. Gasps suffocated the atmosphere, eyes widened in horror, and fists clenched in determination. Time's running out, dear audience. The masked man hollered, each word vibrated with urgency. You're on the brink. Make your choice. Expose the truth that binds you in shackles or return to satisfied ignorance. With that, he pressed a button on the device, and the pulsating light exploded outward, seizing attention in a blinding wash of white-hot brilliance. People recoiled, but it was too late. Those images were now seared onto their consciousness, the police shouted, their voices fading as the crowd became enthralled, trapped in a web of revelation and raw emotion. Conflicting instincts rose, to stand united against the masked figure, or to confront the uncomfortable reality he cast before them. The very notion of safety melted away as individuals weighed their next move, then the device crackled ominously, sending a jolt of energy through the air. Panic surged anew as the crowd instinctively staggered backward, but not before the boy shouted one last question that pierced through the din: what if the truth is worse than we ever imagined? Silence fell like a shroud. Every eye turned to the masked man, waiting for a response. There was a heaviness hanging in the air, each heartbeat felt like the ticking of a bomb. Was he going to answer? Or was that the real question? Just then, a deafening crack echoed through the street as someone fell from the edges of the rooftop above, landing amid the electric haze, swiftly pulling every gaze upward. And there, silhouetted against the night sky, another masked figure appeared. What fresh terror had they brought? Would the truth flee further into the shadows, or would it finally be dragged into the light? The second masked figure dropped with a heavy thud, its dark silhouette merging into the chaos. Confusion rippled through the crowd, and then it happened: the new arrival tipped its head back, revealing a flash of silver hair beneath the mask. Whispers echoed around, a collective gasp rising like smoke. Someone recognized him. Lucas? A voice broke through. The boy from the front, who had questioned the masked man, now stood aghast. He stepped closer, eyes searching, as if pinpointing a lost sibling amid the overwhelming melee. Is that you? Don't be fooled. The original masked man shouted. He's part of the system you want to destroy. He's as deep in the lies as anyone else. Lucas hesitated, uncertainty written all over his face, a war simmering in his mind. Suddenly, something glinted in his hand. A blade? Panic surged through the crowd like wildfire. The familiar dread mixed with anticipation as the two masked figures faced each other. What do you want? The original figure shouted. Does your master send you here to silence me? The second figure merely smirked beneath the mask, lifting the blade, yet it wasn't pointed at the original one. Instead, he turned toward the police line, slicing through the tension like a knife through flesh. You're the monster. Lucas shouted, voice trembling, as he pointed the blade at the masked man. You tell us to face the truth. But what have you done? You're just as guilty. Gasps erupted, disbelief painted on many faces. People seemed to shrink back from the confrontation, hanging on every word, every gesture. The device still pulsated, casting an unsettling glow on their faces. Guilty? The masked man laughed, a rich sound laced with madness. What I'm guilty of is revealing the truth you're too afraid to take hold of. You've been manipulated all your lives. Why don't you embrace it? The police could only stand and watch, frozen in the raging tide of emotions that surged through the crowd. The officer who had been commanding the chaos signaled to his team, eyes flitting between both masked figures. But then, a voice broke the tension, we don't need your chaos. It was the woman with her child. We need to protect what matters. We want to save our families, not join your war. Lucas turned, confusion swirling. What's safe about living in a lie? What's unsafe, she countered, is trusting someone who hides behind a mask. A mask that feeds on hope and despair at once. What happens when we peel it back? You promise revolution, but what's left when it burns? The air thickened with uncertainty, breaths caught in the throats of everyone present. For every person stirred by the masked man's rallying cry, another stepped back, hungering for the comfort of the mundane, wanting nothing to disrupt their reality. Do you see? The original masked man's voice rose, relentless. You've got a chance. You can rise above it all, keep the truth alive. The crackling tension reached a boiling point. Lucas, now uncertain who the real enemy was, made a step toward the police. What do we do now? Do we fight? Do we stand down? A thunderous crash interrupted matters. A billboard behind them splintered and fell, sending debris flying, chaos reigniting like a lit match to dry grass. Screams broke out as panic set in once more, the crowd surging in conflict. People ran, some toward the masked figures, others away from them, and in that moment of chaos, the original masked man ducked behind cover and pressed another button on his device. The vibrations changed, deepening and intensifying, like a heartbeat threatening to explode. "Wake up!" he shouted above the screams. "Or risk losing everything you love." What would happen next? The air buzzed with tension, as the next, fateful decision weighed heavily on their hearts and minds. Would they heed his call, or would the fight to uncover the truth be snuffed out under the weight of fear? The ground shook beneath their feet as another deafening crash rattled the air. The billboard's splintering ruins scattered like shrapnel, sending shards of glass and metal sprawling into the agitated crowd. In a moment, everyone forgot about the masked figures, transfixed at the violence unraveling around them. "Get back! Move!" Officers shouted, urging people to flee the scene. Their voices were lost in the chaos, a cacophony of panic and dread. Mothers shielded their children, fathers grabbed for loved ones, and friends turned on one another, frantically searching for safety in the torrent of human despair. Lucas stood immobile, caught in an agonizing tug-of-war between his instincts and the expanding chaos. The silver-haired masked figure still gripped the blade, his eyes darting nervously, frustration snapping like dry twigs underfoot. Against the backdrop of fear, Lucas caught a glimpse of the device pulsing ominously, thrumming with ominous energy. "Look at them!" The original masked man yelled above the turmoil. "This is what you've been trained to fear. This is the truth of your world. They want you obedient, docile, blind." His voice climbed, now rife with urgency. "You're the only ones who can change it." One of the police officers, tense and focused, stepped forward, weapon drawn. "Drop the knife!" he shouted at Lucas. The boy's heart raced, his mind spinning. Did he drop it? Was he even holding it right now? Confusion flooded his thoughts, embarrassment turning his skin hot. The device pulsed faster, echoing the rhythm of his heart. "No!" Another voice cut through, low and steady. It was the woman with her child again, stepping beside Lucas, eyes blazing. "You're trying to scare them into following you. Is that how you show them the truth?" She glanced at Lucas, determination evident in her voice. "We fight to protect, not to destroy. This battle isn't just against them, it's against ourselves." The crowd momentarily stopped, some stepping back to consider her words. The masked man's laughter emerged, a dark, harsh sound like thunder. "Is this what you believe? That you can win without a fight? It's too late for that." His words poured like poison into the air, sharp and acidic. "What's your plan?" Lucas shouted back, his voice laced with desperation. "Hiding in shadows and spreading chaos? How does that help us?" Before the masked man could respond, an explosion rang out, a nearby car erupted, flames licking the air. The heat surged, forcing Lucas and the woman to stumble back. Bodies scrambled, a stampede of fear and confusion. The officers, overwhelmed, struggled to regain control. "Lucas!" A desperate voice wove through the chaos. It was Emma, his best friend, clawing her way through the crowd. "We have to go. Now!" He barely recognized her silhouette through the smoke and debris. In that moment, the meaning of choice flashed before him, his future. "Lucas, come on!" she begged, terror etched on her face. The revelation cracked open in his gut. He could move forward. But was running away the right choice? The masked figures seemed to intertwine with the smoke, both embodiments of conflicting truths battling inside him. He could see a sliver of a future in the distance. One where hope existed. A roar erupted from the crowd, a wave of voices rising in unison, drowning out his thoughts. Protest against oppression, cries for justice. He forced his eyes to stay focused. The room spun, consumed by chaos. But then, a flicker of something deeper burst forth: bravery. "Stand with me!" Lucas shouted, conviction surging through his veins. "If we fight together." As his words hung in the air, he felt the tension snap. A choice was made. The night teetered on the brink of an oncoming storm, ready to break, but at what cost? The crowd surged forward, moving as a single entity, drawing nearer to the masked figures. But would their leap of faith shatter or solidify their cause? The air was thick with smoke and fear, the acrid scent burning in Lucas's nostrils as he felt the collective pulse of the crowd. With each rumble of anger and fear, he stepped forward, heart racing, eyes fixed on the masked figures looming ahead. "Together!" He shouted again, hoping the power of his voice would embolden those around him. At that moment, a piercing scream sliced through the noise. A woman had collapsed amidst the chaos, her terrified child clinging to her, eyes wide and searching. Emma's face twisted in anguish as she hesitated, torn between the urge to charge into the fray with Lucas and the instinct to save the innocent. "Go!" Emma urged, her voice panic-stricken. "Help her. I'll get the kid." Lucas hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing on him like a boulder. "I can't just leave you. Just go." She insisted, her glancing back at the woman fueling his resolve like a match to kindling. He bolted toward the fallen woman, dodging debris and bodies. A nearby officer was already kneeling beside her, a beacon of authority trying to restore order. "Stay back!" he barked, pushing people away. "Is she okay?" Lucas asked, breathless, kneeling beside him. The officer checked the woman's pulse and then gestured for assistance. "We need to clear this area. She needs help now." As Lucas steadied the woman's head in his lap, he felt her pulse a faint thread of life. He looked up just in time to see the masked figures shifting, their intentions sharpening like blades. The silver-haired figure stepped closer, eyes narrowing at Lucas and the scene unfolding, a sinister grin carving across his face. "The brave little boy thinks he can save her," he taunted, a mocking lilt in his voice. "But do you understand the storms you're inviting? The cost of this heroism?" Fear gripped Lucas's heart, but he fought it back, locking eyes with the officer. "We can't let them win. Whatever it takes." The officer's face tightened, reflecting Lucas's desperation. "We hold the line here, but we need backup. And fast." Then, without warning, another explosion rocked the street nearby. The sound echoed like doom, sending a shockwave of fear through the crowd. Screams erupted again, this time a wave, a tidal surge of panic. The masked figures seized the moment, advancing on the throng. "Now you see!" The silver-haired man shouted, his voice booming. "This is their order. Their fear. And they'll do nothing to save you." A rush of adrenaline surged through Lucas. In that instant, he saw the truth he'd been grappling with: the power of unity was greater than the fear of chaos. He looked around and saw eyes watching him, eyes longing for a hero, for a flame to lead them. "Stand your ground!" he shouted, voice ringing with newfound strength. "Together, we are stronger than fear." But then, one agonizing thought clawed into his mind. Would they turn to madness or courage? The masked figures were not just embodiments of chaos, they were a reflection of their deepest fears. Before he could gather himself, he heard a voice from behind him, tremoring with urgency. "Lucas! The device!" Emma shouted, struggling through the crowd, clutching the pulsating contraption that had caught everyone's attention. His heart dropped. "You have to destroy that thing. It's the source of their power." Emma's voice was frantic, yet steady. The pulsing device seemed to throb in response, a heartbeat of its own, resonating with tensions thickening the air. All at once, clarity formed like lightning. Could this be their chance to turn the tide? But as the masked figures advanced, determination flickering in their gleaming eyes, Lucas felt the urgency deep within him, a need to protect, to fight, to reclaim their truth. "Emma! Don't give it to them. We must." And then silence fell like a guillotine. The crowd was still. Every eye, every heart was on the brink, poised for something monumental to happen. Would they shatter like glass under pressure, or band together, arms raised against the darkness? This moment could define everything. What would Lucas choose in the heart of chaos? The silence pulled like a heavy fog, wrapping around them, squeezing out every breath. Lucas could feel the weight of every eye on him, the tightness in their chests mirrored in his own. He glanced at Emma, who was clutching the device like it was a lifeline, but also a ticking bomb. What was he supposed to do? The air crackled with uncertainty, a dangerous energy that threatened to boil over. The silver-haired man stepped forward, a twisted grin stretching across his face, eyes glinting with malevolence. "You think your unity matters? Look around you. You're all too scared to move." His voice slithered through the crowd, igniting a wave of tremors. Lucas felt his heart race, fighting the urge to sink into despair. He couldn't let fear take over, especially not now. He needed to act, to rally them before the moment slipped away. "Listen!" he shouted, drowning out the inner voice of panic. "This is our moment. If we can stand together, we can break their hold." He could see people shifting slightly, doubt lingering like a shadow. But then, a ripple of recognition sparked in their eyes, a shared understanding that they were more than just frightened bystanders. They could be warriors. "Lucas," Emma gasped, her voice sharp as she glanced at the masked figures, their movement stumbling in uncertainty. "We have to do this fast. I don't know how long we can hold them back." With a steadiness he didn't feel, Lucas nodded. "Break the device." "But it's got to be done," he insisted, urgency igniting his words. The crowd's fear was palpable, but Lucas could feel a flicker of strength breaking through the trepidation. He beckoned towards them. "Help us. We have to take back control." As if lifted by a rising tide, the crowd surged towards him. Strangers joined hands, faces illuminating with courage, ready to charge against the masked figures. Lucas took a breath, grounding himself in the moment. Emma thrust the device into his hands, its pulsing light bathing his face in a ghostly glow. "Lucas, you have to make it count," she exclaimed. With urgency blazing in his chest, he raised the device high, its rhythm thrumming against his palm. He glanced at her, seeing the determination gleam in her eyes. One of the masked figures shifted forward, raising an ominous weapon towards him. "Don't move!" someone cried out, voice a tremor, but it fueled Lucas even more. He focused on the device, scanning its surface for a weakness, some spark to unleash its energy. "Now!" he yelled, heart pounding. Just as he was about to press a button, anything, the silver-haired man lunged forward, his masked companion surging behind him. "Fools!" he roared, a wave of chaotic laughter escaping him. "You will pay for this defiance." The moment hung, suspended on a knife's edge. Lucas, still gripping the device, felt his resolve tighten. This was it. The culmination of chaos, fear, and fragmented hopes all twisted together. The cries, the tears, the resentment, it all led to this single heartbeat. With a sudden movement, he smashed his palm against the contraption's surface. A blinding light erupted, illuminating the terrified faces around him, for just a heartbeat turning darkness into stark clarity. Then, without warning, a sharp crack echoed, splitting the air as the device sputtered and shuddered. In that heartbeat, 1,000 questions flooded his mind. Had he succeeded? Had they unleashed something terrible? All he knew was that the tides had turned, and what lay ahead was a storm they couldn't even begin to fathom. But there was no turning back now. So many choices were still to come. Whole new battles lay ahead. And in that moment, the whole world held its breath, waiting for his next move. As the blinding light surged through the chaos, it illuminated every face, every heart caught in the tempest of uncertainty. For a brief moment, everything halted. Fear wrestled with hope, teetering on the brink of revelation and ruin. Lucas felt the pulse of energy resonating beneath his fingertips, aware that the device was no longer merely a weapon but a key to something far greater than fear itself. Then came the deafening silence, a quiet so thick it masked the shouting, the cries, the heartbreak. The silver-haired masked man staggered back, face twisted in rage. Disbelief swept over the crowd, washing away their doubts, fueling a burgeoning belief that they could take back control. The chaos melted into a collective strength, binding them together like a force of nature. "Is this what you wanted?" Lucas shouted, voice steady and fierce, aiming his words at both masked figures, who now seemed less like rulers of chaos and more like cornered beasts. "Look at what we can do when we stand united." The air crackled with energy. The device pulsed violently but with a restrained power, as though it had been infused with the desires of the crowd. The illusions of superiority that masked their fears began to dissolve, revealing the threads of truth, the values tethering their shattered souls together. Then the first burst of raw energy erupted from the device, shooting forth like a tidal wave. It washed through the crowd, igniting something deep within them. Faces brightened, hands reached out, and hearts soared with the realization that they were indeed powerful, capable of fighting back against the darkness. The original masked man's laughter was swallowed. "You think you can defy the truth?" He spat, but anger betrayed fear in his voice. Something had shifted, had broken loose. There was clarity amidst the danger. "Yes." The crowd roared, a chorus harmonizing in rebellion against tyranny. They were more than witnesses now, they were players in their own fate. With that surge of resolve, Lucas stepped forward, the device held high. "We will no longer accept the narrative written for us." He saw Emma's fierce determination shining through the fog of the moment. He was no longer just a boy caught in chaos, he was a beacon, guiding others to claim their victories, no matter the cost. The silver-haired figure lunged, but this time, Lucas wasn't afraid. He could feel the strength of the crowd behind him, their unified will pushing them forward. "Don't let fear dictate our lives," he yelled, and their voices surged again, swelling, drowning out the darkness threatening to overtake them. Then came that moment of perfect clarity. The masked figures faltered, uncertainty etched on their faces. It became all too real. In that break, they understood that no mask could hide from the unity now coalescing against them. "The truth has always been ours," Lucas shouted. "Now we embrace it." And with a final, decisive thrust, he pressed the last button on the device, unleashing an explosion of light and sound that disintegrated the shadows. The very fabric of fear they had been held captive by unraveled, seeping into nothingness. Cheers erupted, echoing through the streets as faces turned toward one another, no longer divided, united in victory. Tears of relief spilled from eyes, blending with laughter, freeing them from the shroud of ignorance. No longer would they cower under whispers of deception. As the last vestiges of darkness faded, the masked figures slumped, realizing the war they had fought was not one of weapons, but of hearts and minds. Lucas looked around, seeing the promise of a new dawn etched into the faces surrounding him. Together, they had faced chaos, forged light from darkness, and discovered their collective strength, binding them not just by fear but by shared hope. "Let us keep moving forward," Lucas declared, his voice fierce yet hopeful. "Together, we can shape our future." And there, beneath the rising sun, they emerged as warriors of truth and resilience, ready to illuminate their world. This was the moment when everything changed. A new chapter waiting to be written, each person empowered to take a stand for what they believed in, and deep down, in the hearts of all present, they knew they were no longer merely bystanders in the story. They had stepped into the light of their truth, they were ready to face anything together. As we wrap up this incredible journey, don't forget that this is your moment to dive into more powerful stories. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will guide you through every twist and turn of this wild world. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and ensure these stories reach more hungry hearts. flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this gripping finale. What did you feel when the truth was unleashed? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans like you know the importance of supporting our journey together. The next adventure awaits, be part of it.